Perfect. All right, here we go. In three, two. Well, hello and welcome into New York's Asset Protection Roundtable, a three pillars of protection program. I'm Ben George. He's Ted Alatis, attorney and counselor at law at Alatis Law Firm there in Brooklyn, New York. Ted, how are you today?
Doing okay, Ben. Trying to get through the cold weather, but it's
Hmm.
winter, so to be expected.
You got to hunker down for a few months, huh?
Well, yeah, absolutely, but that's why they make long coats and stuff padded parkas and gloves, and thankfully we have that stuff, so we're good to go.
Yeah, there's just something about the cold in the city. I know it's great this time of year. We're recording this around the holidays. It's always a beautiful time to visit the city, but it just seems like the wind whips around pretty good where you are.
Yeah, it sure does, and we're expecting some weather in the next few days, so we'll grin and bear it. We're New Yorkers. We're tough. We'll get through it.
You're used to it.
Yep.
Well, we got a good show today. Kind of want to throw out some examples of some times where maybe you don't need to work with the attorney that you're currently working with. Just some scenarios that maybe should raise some red flags for you, because not all attorneys are created equal. Most are, hopefully, honest, hardworking, ethical people, but some might not. Some might even know what the heck they're doing, believe it or not. But there are numerous situations where you, the client, need to proceed with caution. So that's what we want to focus on today's episode. We're going to cover a few of these situations where you might just want to run for the door potentially. So should be a lot of fun. I'm going to present the scenario to you, Ted. I want you to just kind of take us through some ways maybe a client can identify this is happening. And then also, obviously why it's a red flag and a bit of a problem for a client potentially.
Okay, great.
All right, let's start off with this one. So you're working with an attorney, and they make a recommendation and tell you what you need before even understanding your situation and what is important to your family.
Yeah, that's typically a red flag, and that's one of those things where people often kind of fall to the pressure of just trying to get a price on what they're about to do. If your attorney just diagnoses your problem right over the phone without really sitting down and having a conversation with you about what your needs are, what your overall goals are, that's probably a red flag. That's an attorney who's just looking to sell you a product, whereas as opposed to actually provide you with good legal services.
Yeah, there's multiple examples of this, right? I mean, especially I guess in the estate planning world, obviously there's multiple types of law, but in your world specifically, there's just so many kind of platforms and software and online services that can just kind of take care of what you need before you even put any of the information in, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And we've talked about DIY programs before, but a lot of times what happens is that a lot of attorneys think they can do estate planning, and they buy a software product, and they basically just are beholden to what the software product produces, and they sell it. And for some people that may work, but they're not explaining the options to the client. They're not necessarily digging deep into the client's needs and wants. And at the end of the day, all they're really doing is buying a set of documents that have been prepackaged with their name on it. And that isn't necessarily lawyering. That's more just selling. And frankly, if that's what you're looking for, you can probably do that yourself. You don't need to spend $5,000 on a trust plan for someone to just do that for you when you can do it yourself. We certainly recommend, and what we certainly do is we actually sit down and actually have a conversation and have an analysis of what is going on in your estate and your plan and your with your family, and try to meet those needs, because otherwise we're really not providing the service that you're paying for.
Yeah, it's definitely it seems like an obvious one that you want to make sure that your attorney is paying attention to what your wishes are before giving you any kind of guidance or recommendation. So that's the first one to put on your radar. So next up, your attorney tries to force you to appoint the attorney as your fiduciary, your executor, trustee, or power of attorney agent. Does this happen a lot?
So I've seen it happen. We certainly try to avoid that. There are circumstances where a potential client does not have someone who can act in that capacity. But in that rare circumstance, there's lots of disclosures that have to occur, lots of information has to be provided to the client, so they make a willing and knowing delegation to an attorney or an accountant or somebody like that. But when an attorney does that, it creates an inherent conflict of interest because the attorney is going to get compensated for serving as the fiduciary, in addition to serving as the attorney. And so, the interests between the attorney and the client may not necessarily mesh. So, when an attorney is pressuring you to do that, especially if it's someone you just met or met for the first time, in a consult, I would be very leery of that.
I would imagine there's maybe some horror stories out there if this happens where attorneys can really take advantage of the situation.
Yeah, sure. It happens all the time, and anyone who's read a local law journal, will be able to, identify situations where that's actually happened in the past, including attorneys who were family members of decedents, and they acted as the fiduciary, where they ended up uh, eh, taking advantage of the estate. It's a really difficult decision to make, when you're making a decision like appointing a fiduciary, in some circumstances, especially when you don't have someone really close that you can trust to do that. But when, it's someone, who knows the system and can manipulate the system, and has a means of understanding how to take advantage of the system, you have to be extra careful.
But it could be a situation. There are situations where you might want your attorney to be the fiduciary. It's just if you get the feeling they're trying to force you into that action, right?
Right, absolutely. I mean, like I said, we've done it, and it's rare. But it's generally in circumstances where someone really doesn't have anyone close or doesn't have anyone that they can rely on to take care of certain things, or has certain wishes that family members may not necessarily want to take advantage of, or follow through on. So in circumstances like that, it becomes something that may be a necessity for that particular individual, and so we've done it, but it's limited, and we try to limit our practice in how often we do that.
Okay. All right. So you might want to run away from your lawyer if the attorney claims to be an expert on everything related to law.
Yeah, well, I mean, they call it the practice of law for a reason. Each and every day, the laws change in one form or another, and things change with regards to, areas of law. And there's a reason why, there are, so many case books that include cases that have gone to litigation and decision by judges. There's a reason for all that, and that's because the law does change. And so, anyone who says they're an expert in anything, um, first of all, displays an arrogance, that is probably something that should be off-putting. Number one, and number two, doesn't actually review or stay current with what's going on in the law. So anyone who does that, you probably should steer away from.
Okay. Very, very good. I know that I like that practice. It is a practice of law. I never really thought of it that way, but yeah, it seems very simple and straightforward, but it makes a lot of sense that nothing's ever settled. You're always
Right.
trying to learn and understand. All right. Last one here on our list. You might want to run away from your lawyer if the attorney pressures you to let their office do your taxes, sell you insurance, annuities, and manage all of your investments.
Yeah, so there are ethical rules against some of this stuff, but there are certainly law firms that are out there that do that, and they may have other professionals within their practice or within the same suite or something of that nature that perform other services for individuals, and they may want to try to gain a referral source by doing that. The most important thing to do in a scenario like that is, first of all, evaluate the individual services that they're offering, right? And are you getting a value for the services that they'd be potentially offering you? And making sure that there is that level of scrutiny that you would get if you were procuring those services independently. The accountant has certain rules and regulations that he or she has to follow. An insurance agent, same thing. And financial planners, etc. In our office, we don't do those ancillary services, and we recommend that individuals have their own sources for that type of stuff. However, we do have people that we can refer people to, um, who have provided services in the past. We gain nothing from that. It's people that have been recommended to us in the past from other clients who have expressed um, that a certain level and quality of work has been provided by that particular service provider. But I just, certainly whenever you have that uh, one stop shop mentality, I would be just very leery of that type of arrangement.
Yeah, and to me, it makes sense that the reason why you'd work with an estate planning attorney is because they're an expert in one field, right? You want to find someone that can really hone in on one specific area of law, especially in this case, like your estate plan. You want to really focus on that. So it's just a red flag. Again, none of these mean you have to run away from your lawyer, but some things to be thinking about if any of these sound familiar to you, or maybe you've been in this situation before with your attorney. It's maybe worth maybe getting a second opinion. And I guess too, Ted, to kind of wrap this conversation up, if anybody is in a situation where maybe they feel uncomfortable or think, well, is this do all attorneys follow the same kind of practice or process? It's okay to go meet with another attorney and just kind of get their thoughts and present your situation, right?
Yeah, of course, absolutely. I mean, you ultimately you're the client, and you have that right to go around and speak with other professionals, get professional opinions from second and third sources. Perfectly acceptable, and we don't discourage people from doing that.
All right, very good. Well, again, if you have questions for Ted or want to follow up with him, want to get a second opinion, you can always go to latticelawfirm.com. That is the website. And you can always call 718-233-2903. But just some things to think about when you're working with your attorney. And if anything ever comes up with you, don't hesitate to reach out to someone else just to get a second opinion. And Ted's always there for that. But if you want to get your estate plan started, best place to do so is by going to latticelawfirm.com. All right, Ted, as always, great to catch up with you. Thanks for your insight today, and we'll do it again soon.
Thank you, Ben. Looking forward to it.
Thank you for listening to New York's Asset Protection Roundtable, a 3 pillars of protection program for Ted Alatsis at the Alatsis Law Firm. I am Ben George. Take care.